when they were very little, they knew what they wanted, they knew what schools they wanted to go to, and what professions they wanted to go into. Me, myself, I am a very indecisive person. You give me a lot of choices, I'll have like 5 that I want to pick from, and I can't decide. I gotta flip a coin or do eeny, meeny, miny, mo. But it amazes me that some people do have that life plan that they have, like their whole thing is planned out from point A to point B and all those steps. And while I was looking into this, preaching this sermon effectively, because we plan things, we plan events, we plan for long-term or short-term goals in our lives. Because that's what we do, we plan. And I found this 10-step page that told me how to plan effectively. And it starts with step 1, where to start. Your goal should be something you would not be planned for our goals to someone else's need than to our own. So the first step is to figure out what you want, what you truly want, and what goal you want to achieve. The second step is to write a vision. What do you see for your goal? And it should be as detailed as possible, because that's what you want, right? You want it to be this big grand picture with all these little details into it. Step 3 is self-motivation. You gotta write down the whys of your vision. Why do you want to do this? And why should I do this? You gotta be honest with yourself. Why is it important in your life? Is this goal so important to you? Why must you achieve it? And why will this help you, or why will this help others when you achieve this goal? Step 4 is you gotta specify what you want. Everyone needs a boost of encouragement every now and then, because you gotta push through things. And sometimes we all need that boost of encouragement to get through things in life. But without a specific guideline on how you want to reach your goal, you're not going to get anywhere, really. That's why you need a guideline. At least that's what this plan says. Step 5 is make an action plan. You gotta make plans to carry out plans. Most of the time, if you have all this from steps 1 through 4 and you don't make plans to carry out those plans, well, it's all going to be a mess. It's going to be everywhere. And you can go as deep as you want into carrying out these plans, and if it's you can just make out different points. So if you have like a plan for whatever day, you can have little bullet points on what you need to do. Step 6, set a deadline. I don't like deadlines. They make me feel rushed, or like even if it's like far away in the future, it's like I don't see it. It's like some distant planet out in the solar system. And until that day arrives, sometimes I will do it the day of, which isn't good. I'm working on it. It's called procrastination. It's a big problem that I think, I don't know if you guys have it. I know I have it. I'm a big procrastinator. I know a lot of you too have big procrastination problems, and I am one of those. But set a deadline, a date that will take you to complete the goals, working at an average pace. You want to work faster than average, not give yourself excuses. You wanna make those actions and do those things that you have in your plan, but you don't want to give yourself excuses as saying, oh, well, I can't finish it by this date because I have so-and-so's gathering that day, or this or that. You gotta set aside time to do those things. Step 7, post your plan. So when I was reading this, it gave me things you will need at the top. It said pen, tape, and I guess the tape was for the poster plan. So it says to put your plan somewhere visible where you can see it. Put it where it's not disrupting you in your daily task, like in front of your computer monitor when you're doing work. Like somewhere on the fridge or off to the side, somewhere where you can see it, where you'll see it daily and you'll remind yourself that, hey, I have this plan that I have to follow to reach the goal that I want. Step 8, speak up. Tell someone you know or trust of your plan, so that way they can keep you in line when you step out of it. Because you can't reach a goal by yourself. You have to have at least someone with you, a partner, to help you achieve that goal. Because otherwise you're going to stray off and not follow completely in what you're going to be doing. And with a family member or a friend, they'll tell you, hey, how are you doing? Are you keeping track of what you've been doing? Are you meeting your deadlines? Step 8 is monitoring your progress. If your goal involves daily tasks, you can, check and check it off on the calendar with an X or a smiley face saying, hey, you did good doing those daily tasks during your plan. You can mark it off. Because everyone likes seeing that they're making progress. Everyone likes seeing that little line in the graph go up. So it's good to monitor your progress on how you're doing and how far and how good you are at keeping track of your deadlines and making sure you do it. So that's monitoring progress is always good. And then step 10 is reward yourself. So when you know you did well, because there will be times where you will do great, and that's because you are your best self. You are the best you can ever be because you are you, and no one can make you better, no one can make you worse. Granted, there are people that will come into your life and maybe shake things up a little bit, but you are you. And you have to remind yourself of the good that you do and take a break. But don't give yourself like a huge reward. Like, for example, if you're trying to lose weight, don't eat like a lot of sugar or candy, You gotta be careful with what you reward yourself. Okay. Now, these are the steps on how to plan effectively. But, because these are our earthly human plans, we don't often account for the plans that God has for us. And just because we plan, that doesn't mean that it's going to go the way it does. I like to plan, especially when I'm running late or if I have a presentation or something. I often plan. I'll say, okay, I didn't finish my slide for this group presentation. I'll wake up at this time and I'll finish it by this time. I'll practice my lines and then I'll do a little bit more research to add on. But if that doesn't work and I wake up later, then I say, okay, plan B, it's going to be this plan, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And that's what I usually do, and like most things, they don't go to plan. I usually just come up with like several different plans, to be honest, because I like making sure that I'm on schedule if I'm running late, or if procrastination got in the way, then I'll do things. I wouldn't say that I guess I would say that I did wing a lot of things in my life, more or less. Not the serious stuff I did plan out, but during school, when I was in high school or middle school, I'm sorry, Father, but I did wing most of the things that I that was my middle school years, especially, because middle school is middle school, but I would wing things. And sometimes I would wing things now, but not as often as I do. Just like the unexpected stuff. Like when something comes over and I'm just like, oh, well, I don't have a plan for this, so I'll just have to make something up as I go. But really, I've been blessed with a wonderful life, and wonderful family and parents. Parents that God gave me because I didn't have control over that. No one, you can't pick your family, but I was blessed with a wonderful one, which is amazing and great, and that's why I'm here on this path that I am today.
Amen.
Because as far as I know, I grew up in the ministry, and my parents came into the life of God and into worshiping Him, but that's not my story to tell. I've been blessed in life in many ways, and I'm sure all of you guys have been blessed in life in such wonderful ways, because God blesses us all, and He blesses us even more than we can hold in our hands. From a young age, I didn't have a specific goal on what I wanted to be when I grew up. It would constantly change as life continued. Like, I know from when I was little, I wanted to be a doctor when I was little, a pediatrician when I was little, but I don't want to be a pediatrician anymore. That's not what I want to do, and I have, now I'm chasing after a career in criminal justice, which is way far off from being a pediatrician. So maybe there's this Professor Lowell, in the University of Harvard, and he was speaking like a long time ago about Columbus Day. He points out three profounding things about Christopher Columbus, his discovery of America. And we all know the story of Christopher Columbus, how he came here and someday, that was not 19.
Okay.
I don't know how that rhyme goes anymore. Something, he saw the ocean blue. But he pointed out these three things. When he first left Spain, he didn't know where he was going. Life is like that sometimes. We are on a constant track, a trail, or a boat in the ocean where we don't know where we're going. There's no land in sight. And the weather is unpredictable because it changes, and so do the currents in the ocean, and the waves, and the tides, and everything. Second, when he arrived in the New World, he didn't know where he was. And sometimes life is unpredictable. Sometimes our ship lands on this little island and we don't know where it is, because we've never encountered this part of life before. And I think that's what life is. Life is an uncharted map, where we constantly meet all these obstacles, and sometimes we've never encountered them before. But that's where you have to trust in God to help you through them, or to help you wander through that island that's been uncharted by man or by other humans there. And third, when he returned to Ferdinand in his court, he didn't know where he had been. And he did this all on borrowed money. Imagine you go to some king in Spain. He's like, you're telling him you're going to be traveling, or you're going to be finding a new route to Asia to get goods, but you get stopped by this big old land there, and you don't know where that's been most of your life. You thought that, oh hey, where has this been? It must have appeared overnight or something. But borrowed money, he must have been a good salesman. Yeah. James writes about these people, who have a business plan, right? In the passage that we just read, they knew when they would begin their venture out to the city within the next few days. They knew where they were going, to a city to do good business, which was good for business. This big old city, because when you want to do business, you want to go where there are more people who need that necessity that you are going to sell or that you were going to advertise. They knew how long they were going to be there, a year or so. And they knew what they were going to do, carry on business. And they knew the ultimate purpose of this business trip, to make money. And it sounds like a really good, decent plan. It really does. They have a plan, they know where they're going, they know when they're going, they know why they're going, and they're going there to make business and to make money. But we don't know all the details, but the basics are there about it. But according to James, there was a major flaw in their plan. It's almost as if he's saying, you make all these plans, you talk like this, yet you really don't have a clue what's going to happen in the future. And that's how most of us are. We make all these plans, all these arrangements for the future when we really don't know what's going to happen in the future. And I know there's a saying that goes, you live your life one day at a time. And it is kind of true because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We already know what happened yesterday, but that was yesterday, and yesterday does not affect your today, and it does not affect your tomorrow. You affect your today, and you affect your tomorrow, but God intervenes every day of your life, and every day you make plans, but God pushes aside those plans because he has plans for you already made, even before you were out here in the world walking around and making all of these plans.
Amen.
I know my mom, sometimes like me and my siblings will tell my mom, like, Mommy, like, can we go this or that way tomorrow? And she'll say, like, something along the lines of, mañana es mañana, or no te preocupes por mañana. Like, don't worry about tomorrow. But no, Mom. Because that's tomorrow. And whether we like it or not, we don't know if we'll wake up tomorrow. Because God's the one who's giving us each breath for a new day. And I know it may seem kind of scary to think about it, more or less, in a way, that we might not be able to wake up tomorrow. But if you don't wake up tomorrow, you'll wake up in the kingdom of heaven.
Amen.
And that's what
Hallelujah. Thank you, Lord.
And so, as James was saying, more or less paraphrasing, it's like you make all these plans and you talk all this talk, yet you really don't have a clue what's going to happen in the future. Besides that, you leave out the most important factor in each and every single one of your plans that you make, whether it be for tomorrow, whether it be for some later date in the future. Each and every one of us, when we make a plan, we always forget to add the most important factor, which is God. Because without that factor, he's just going to do whatever he wants, really, because he gave you this life. And he's going to tell you how to live it, how to lead it, because he knows what's best for you than when we know what's best for ourselves. Tell you, hey, you're not going to this event that day, you're going to go somewhere else, you're going to go out and teach people about me, my name, for example. In Luke chapter 12, 13 to 21. Luke 12, 13, 21. Luke 12, 13, 21. And we're going to be reading from 13 all the way to 21.
Amen. Amen.
And I read in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And one of the company said unto him, Master, speak to my brothers that he divide the inheritance with me. And he said unto him, Man who made me a judge judge or divider over you. And he said unto them, Take heed and beware of the covetousness of a man's life consistent, not in the abundance of things which he possesses. And he spake a parable unto them, saying, The ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentiful. And he thought within himself, saying, What shall I do, because I have no room where to bestow my fruits? And he said, This will I do. I will pull them down my barns and build greater, and there will I bestow all my fruits and my goods. And I will say to my soul, So thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Take thine ease, eat, drink, and may be merry. But God said unto him, Thou fool, this night thou soul shall be required of thee. Then who shall those things be which thou hast provided? So he is that layeth up treasure for himself, and is not rich toward God. And here Jesus says, it's not wrong to store up things for yourself. You can have all these goods and all these treasures for yourself. That's fine. But the problem is that when we make plans, we leave God out of the picture. We make this big plan, this big picture of how our lives are going to be sometimes, or how we'll achieve this long-term goal. But we always leave God off to the side, and we make him like he's not even there. The person in the parable made many preparations for his life on this earth without considering the things he needed in the afterlife, or from here and after in his life. Because in the parable it said, you have stored all these things and all these fruits and all these possessions, and he stored them away. And which was fine, but it was for himself, and he said, I'll have enough to eat, to drink for the rest of my life. But then God came to him and said, I'm going to need your soul. It's going to go, you're not going to wake up the next morning. So what's going to happen to all those fruits and stuff you stored for yourself? Because our worldly possessions are not going to be buried with us. I've heard this term or phrase, you're not going to be buried with your money. And you're not going to take your money where you're going, because that's all physical, worldly stuff.
Amen.
The world is filled with self-promotion and self-satisfaction, and there is little room for God. Most of the stuff, you see, there's a lot of people out here like promoting things or like gaining things for their own self because they feel satisfied with the stuff that they bought or what they're doing with. But they often just push God to the side like he's not even there. He's on the sidelines waiting for us to let him come into our lives and let him intervene. When God is not involved, we measure success differently. We measure success by our own doing, by what we have achieved on our own accord, and no matter how we did to achieve that success. Because I know some people, there's a saying, there's a lot of sayings that I heard that pertain to this, but there's a saying, I don't quite remember how it goes, but you made your way up the ladder by stepping on other people. And I often see how that's related to top big billionaires that they've made. Sometimes they had to cut off friendships, very close friendships, when they made their way up that ladder of wealth and success. And without God, we often do that. We step on others to make ourselves gain more. But with God, success is measured differently. Success isn't measured in the worldly way. Success is measured in spiritually, how you helped someone come into the Word of God, how you've been showing someone His Word and how His love for this world, for not this world, for His life and His Word. When God is not involved, it is measured by earthly standards and earthly wisdom. Earthly standards are often things that we do without knowing, because I know when I was in middle school, everyone tried to, or tended to, try to follow the trends that were going on. And in elementary school, I'll give one example. In elementary school, I don't know if you guys remember this. I'd say that it was long ago for me. It was like 4th or 5th grade, but there was this trend going on. We were in another state, and there was this trend going on. And I heard these girls during my soccer practice talk about it, and it was when the girls would put feathers in their hair. I don't know if you guys remember if that was a trend or if that was a trend here or not. But you would put like little feathers, decorative feathers in your hair. And I thought it was really cool. I wanted one. I begged my parents, I asked. And sometimes my dad and my brother would joke that, that they would just grab a chicken and pluck one of its feathers and just put it in my hair. But I did one day, we went to the store and they put feathers in their hair, and so it was like this little bead, and they put it in the strand of my hair, and then they put the feather, and then they like flipped it closed like that, and it stayed in my hair for a good while. But I did have to plaster it down for a little bit because it would go whoop. It would stick out, and I didn't want that. But that was a trend that I wanted to follow because I thought it was really cool. And of course, I was fifth grade, fourth, I don't know, somewhere between those years. 4th grade. Thank you, Mommy. It was 4th grade, and I thought it was really cool. I don't know if I was the only girl in my class who did it. I can't remember. It was long ago. But that was a trend. That's what I wanted to do. Sometimes I would find myself, in middle school, I found myself liking owls. And this was in 6th grade, 6th, 7th grade, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. I found myself 8th grade because 8th grade, it was 8th grade. 8th grade, I found myself liking owls. And this was 2014 to 2015. I remember. 2014, 2016, I found myself liking owls. I don't know why, I just really liked them, and I still do. But as the year continued on, I found out that owls later became a trend. There were owls everywhere. My classmates had owls, and I was like, wow, I know I didn't start this, but I really liked owls. And I was like, this is one of the many times that I didn't join a trend. I liked it before the trend happened.
Amen.
When God is involved, it is not a matter of I will, but if the Lord is willing. I know in Spanish we have a phrase saying primeramente Dios. We'll do this day, or primeramente Dios, later on in life we'll do this. Because that is if God is willing. Because no matter how much we plan, and I know I said this repeatedly, but it is important. No matter how much we plan, if it is not in the will of God, then it will not be done. And if it is, then it will. Because even though we make all these plans, it might not be in the standards of God's plan for us. It might not even cross. It might just be a whole separate map on its own, a whole separate path than the one we're supposed to be leading. When God is involved, it is not about my accomplishments, but God's blessings. Because if we follow the path that God has for us and do the things that He has planned for us, God blesses us because we're doing what He wants us to do for Him and for others and for his kingdom. And that's what it's honestly all about. It's doing what he's telling us to do. When God is involved, it is not just a matter of storing up treasures on earth, but it becomes a matter of storing up treasures in heaven. In the book of Proverbs, chapter 21, verse 5, it gives us, and it reads in 21:5. Proverbs 21, verse 5. And it reads, the thoughts of a diligent tend only to pentuousness, but of everyone that is hasty only to want. And in my Bible, it gives a little note here, and it says, the hasty person lacks forethought and diligence. And forethought means careful consideration of what will be necessary or may happen in the future. And when you hastily plan, it's a mess. It's like you don't give a thought to what it's going to affect in your future. Because I often been told when you use social media, don't post things you don't want your boss or future employer to see. Because I know in big corporations, or if you're going to be doing like big jobs and stuff like that, with like big name things. For example, if I were to become a lawyer, a big name law firm, they would most likely check my social media and see what I posted or what I've been doing. And if I post something that's not pleasing, then they'll bring it up and they'll say, hey, what's this all about? And then they'll most likely reject me because of that post. And it might have been one little silly post and like in a rush to say, hey, look what I'm doing. But in the long term, it might have been years ago, but in the long term, that does affect someone. That does affect your job and employment. So it is a big thing when you do little things may affect your future, but God intervenes and he makes bigger plans and outcasts all those little imperfections because he's God. He made you and you are you. You are the best you that you are, and you are even better because you live for God and you live in the name and under him. You are part of his kingdom, a queen and king.
Amen. Hallelujah.
In Proverbs 16:3, it says, commitment to the Lord, whatever you do, and your plans will succeed. And it is true, when we commit or when we do things for the Lord, and they will turn out bigger and better. And I know this is amazing because if we do things with the help of the Lord, we do them better than what we would have done by ourselves on our own.
Amen.
And when God is in our plans, we are always successful. And even when it doesn't appear, because sometimes when we do things to God, it's successful, but to the world, because they don't know of him, and they don't see him the way we do, it's like we didn't even do anything. But the world doesn't matter. We gotta push that aside and focus on God, because he's the one who controls our lives and our plans, because he's the one who made us and the one who has plans for us. And so referring back to James, not only did these business people fail to include God in their plans, they put too much stock in the future. They presumed that the future would be at their disposal, which isn't true. The future is out of our control. We can try to grasp it, try to hold on to it, we'll never really grab it. It's like sand, it's like mist. It'll slip through our fingers because we don't know what's going to happen. I know, okay, so compared to the eternity of our lives are like a vapor that appears for a little while, but then vanishes away. Because our life here on earth is going to be short. We aren't going to be here forever because we are really just skin and bone. We're made of dirt and sand and dust, and we're molded to the way God created us. But just because our earthly body dies, that doesn't mean that spiritually we do. Because if we die here on earth, we live up in heaven eternally.
Amen. Hallelujah.
And Peter describes it this way in 1 Peter chapter 1, 24 to 25. It says, all men are like grass, and all their glory is like the flowers of the field, and the grass withers, and the flowers fall, but the word of the Lord stands forever.
That's right.
Because if we have all these plans and all these things stacked up and stockpiled in our future, one little thing could change it all. It could all come crumbling down. It'd be like the flowers in the field and the grass, it can wither. But the Lord and His Word stands and will always stay forever in our lives. In Ecclesiastes 6:12, Solomon puts it this way: for who knows what is good for a man in life? During the few meaningless days he passes through like a shadow. There's nothing wrong for planning in the future, but perhaps we shouldn't place too much stock in our plans. Because God is always going to intervene, no matter how much preparation you've done for said plans or for said life. Because God is the one in control, not us. In Proverbs chapter 19:21, it says, many are the plans in a man's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. And maybe we should call our own plans plan B, because God's plans are plan A. But we're never going to use our plan B, because God's plan always prevails.
Amen.
And it always works.
Hallelujah.
With God in our plans, perhaps it won't be such a shock when He intervenes. Because we make all these plans, and when God comes, it's like one big shock. Because we're like, oh, I didn't plan for this, but God did. So if we involve Him and include Him in our plans, it won't shock us when He comes and He intervenes and changes those things. And James concludes on his thoughts on the matter. Instead, you ought to say, if it's the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. As if you boast or brag, such boasting is evil. Anyone who then knows the good he ought to do and doesn't do it is sin. Back then, when they would write letters or sign their name on something, they would write DV. And those aren't my initials. They aren't. But in Latin, it stands for Dio volente. And it means Lord willing. So they would sign their name, and they would write DV, Lord willing. And that's how we should sign our plans. When we make them, Lord willing, I'll do this. Or Lord willing, I'll do that. And this also goes to, when God has plans for us, it is our job to do those plans, to do those actions. Because it's sin not to. Because He's calling us, He's calling each and every one of us to do those plans for us. Because in James 4:17, anyone then who knows the good he ought to do and doesn't do it is sin. And in Proverbs chapter 3, verses 27 to 28, it says, do not withhold good from those who deserve it when it is in your power to act. Do not say to your neighbor, come back later, I'll give it tomorrow. when you have it now, when you now have it with you, maybe sometimes we are so caught up in the future that we forget to take care of the present. Sometimes we make all these big plans for the future that we forget that now is just as important as tomorrow. And I know all this planning and things, but in the book of Jeremiah, and I'm going to end with this, my brothers and sisters. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 29, verse 11. It says in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord, the thoughts of peace to give you an expected end. He knows the plans he has for us. He will always know, and our job is to follow the plans he has set forward, not to stray off his path, but to continue onwards in doing those things that he has. So my brothers and sisters, that I will end with and say that follow God's plan. And it's okay to have your own plans, but always sign it, God willing.